In episode 6 of So Say We Travel the podcast, we will discuss Army Corps of Engineer campsites in Central Texas.
We will rank 5 of our favorites from least to most, considering things like space, amenities, and location.
And finally, we will continue our reviews of Battlestar Galactica episodes.
This week, we're breaking down Season 1, Episode 1.
Welcome aboard to So Say We Travel. Hi, I'm Sean.
Hi, I'm Charlie.
And we are So Say We Travel. And this is our 6th podcast episode. And six.
6.
They come out bi-monthly, so every 2 weeks. So be sure to check those out on any streaming service that you have for your podcasts, or check out the video on YouTube. But again, back to the point of these podcasts. We are going through the process of transitioning from our sticks and bricks to living full-time on the road in our rig, the Galactica back there. And we're hoping to document our experiences and then share our experiences. And personally, for me, experience is interchangeable with knowledge, right? So we're hoping to share our knowledge with you in hopes that you maybe learn something, commensurate with us through the trials, the celebrations, and and avoid hopefully some of the pitfalls and mistakes that we've made in the process.
Yes.
So yeah, since our last episode, what's happened?
Well, not a lot for the first time. We accepted an offer. We talked about that on the last podcast. So we accepted an offer. So these things, they take a while. We should close in about 2 weeks though. So we'll see. The inspector came and did an inspection and stuff. And so after that, it's really just about waiting, getting all the paperwork and stuff done. But fingers crossed, we should be closing in 2 weeks and then we'll be done. Yeah.
I feel we're in really, really good hands with the realtor that we have.
Oh, yeah.
She has really huge connections in the area that we're at trying to sell.
Yeah.
She has a title company that moves heaven and earth for her, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So I have no worries about anything being done on that front.
Yeah, and the fact that we haven't heard from her in like a week or so is, I guess, a good sign.
No news is good news.
That means, stuff's happening and no hiccups or anything. So I guess it's good.
Charlie did a bit of traveling.
I did.
Last weekend, and she was gone for 4 days, and it was just me and Maddie. But one thing I realized is that for the past, 5 weeks, it feels like something has been happening for this process. Something is always happening. So there was a text or something was appointment or something. And that was the first weekend where literally nothing was going on. I mean, the house is pretty much emptied out. We've got everything in storage that we want to have in storage. We're just really waiting to close. And so I texted her. I was like, it feels weird that nothing's happening. And she's like, well, no, it feels weird, but we're right where we need to be. So, we're just playing the waiting game. Hurry up and wait at this point. And but like I said, like Charlie said, everything is moving on the way that it should and should have no issues at all. Yep. As you can see, though, we are out at a campsite.
We are.
So the last time we took the Galactica out, we were here and we are back in Taylor Park. But the last time in our last episode, we kind of cried a little bit because we were over there and not in this spot. Like number 4
this
here.
This is the spot.
Yes.
This is the one you want to be at.
Yeah. So Charlie was awesome. And she's going to make a video or a how-to article at some point that we'll put on SoSayWeTravel.com on how to go and schedule these sites and book these sites, because she got us back in the spot that we absolutely love. But we've had a really great weekend again here in this spot. The location is just so great.
It is, yes.
We got some additions to our campsite. We've got some hammocks up now.
Yeah, I think you can
hammocks
see
up over here.
We got one on the other side too.
Yeah, and so we're just gradually just growing and filling out our home and filling out our spaces here in the campsite. And again, I'm looking straight ahead, and I've got the badminton net set up, but there's probably a good 20 or 30 yards.
Yeah, it's completely open. There's
up until
nobody
the tree
on
line.
That side of us.
Yeah, and so I just think about our backyard at home. And it was big, but it wasn't this big. Like literally, we're taking and turning the world into our backyard, quite literally. Just some perks about kind of another thing. It kind of, every time we get out here, I'm reminded of why we're doing this, and it feels so good. And the more we get out here, the more it feels like home. And then everything back there is kind of vacationing, like being somewhere we're not supposed to be. So this episode though, we want to talk to you about our favorite campsite, as well as a lot of other campsites that are established by the Army Corps of Engineers. So the Army Corps of Engineers was actually a separate permanent branch that was established on March 16th in 1802, and it acts as the nation's kind of environmental engineers. They have a huge presence across the country. They're federally funded and empowered There's like 113,000 locations nationwide. Yeah. So there's tons of these campsites out there. It says that there's 4,200 sites, I think so. Actual campsites sites. And activities. And I remembered that the last time we recorded an episode was our first episode outdoors. And we're just that'll take us right into why these Army Corps of Engineers sites are so amazing. Yes. Our very first episode recorded outdoors were at Jellystone. And literally probably less than 10 feet away, someone was pulling in their RV while we were trying to film our episode. We had the headsets on and the microphones. Yeah. And so we had this, and they were noise canceling microphones, but you still heard someone pulling in and they're kind of cranking their stabilizers down. Yeah. You know,
we're like, we have to stop. Stop recording.
Well, I'm so excited loud. To be able to record outside because literally half, 25, 30 yards is the next campsite that way. Yeah. And like 20, 30 yards the next campsite that way. And I think that comes from the fact that it is federal land. They're not looking to make a profit. Yeah. Right. The sites are established and allocated to each individual camp. And the camp sizes will always stay the same. They will always be large. Yeah. They'll always be kind of, for the most part, all of them paved?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, the ones that we've been to, I'm sure there are different types and, different ones. But yeah, they've all been paved. Yeah, and that's a very good point. All the ones that we're talking about today, because we're weekend warriors for now. Right. We're only going to places that we can reach in a weekend. So all of these are going to be primarily in the Central Texas area. Yeah. Now, you may find, because it is a federally funded program, the Army Corps of Engineers, the regulations are going to be kind of, some of the things we mentioned are going to be the same across all of them because it's Army Corps of Engineers regulation. Right. Yeah. And that's one of the upsides to it being a federal kind of program is that there's going to be consistency. There's going to be consistency with the prices, like for the sites. What are you? Well, I don't know that for sure. Gotcha. But I mean, I know the ones that we've here in Texas are a certain price.
Yeah. Certainly, but we've been to 5 different ones, like a huge group.
And they've all been the same price. So I don't know. I'm not 100% sure if they change prices, but I know the ones in Texas, like in the wintertime, they're $22 a site. And then the summertime, they're a little bit more. It's $26 a site. And then they have double sites too. So you can do those for $32 and $36, I think, where you can put 2 RVs in there. And they have like double hookups, which we've seen people do too. I guess, what is it called? Caravans. And people travel together so you can fit 2 of them. And then they have water hookups. They have electric hookups. There's 30 and 50 amps at each one. I think they actually have 15 amp ones too. That you can plug into. And then the dump station. They have dump stations. There's no sewer hookups, but some of them do. I think some of them do actually have full hookups. We've just never been to the ones that have the full hookups, but there are ones that do.
I wonder if the price would change. If
it would be more expensive because they have the sewer hookup, but I doubt it's that much more. Yeah.
But you're going to find, again, a consistency, even if not in the actual facilities that are available. There's going to be a baseline expectation that you can have of the quality. Right. Because there is regulations that apply to each and every single one. They're ran by kind of same office. There's someone that's being held accountable with the upkeep. Other side of that might be a downside for some people, right? There's some people that look to get out here when they go camp to get away from society, rules, regulations, things like that. And so maybe being on some BLM land out there in the middle of nowhere, like you like being able to set up and do whatever it is that you want to do. Yeah. Here they have literal pamphlets that outline, and they've got, orders and regulations and subsets
You're
and things.
You're supposed to do certain, you can't be loud after a certain amount or a certain time.
And they check.
And they do, yeah.
Like there's regular patrols where they either Corps of Engineers representatives or the camp hosts will be driving through. The camp hosts,
they have volunteers too that work the sites, but they're constantly driving around and checking and making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, and nobody's here that's not supposed to be here, because you do have to pay to be here. So they'll check. They put stickers on their cars, so they do check those.
So like I said, there's a baseline kind of expectation that you can have with it being federally kind of facilitated and handled. But again, the other side of that is there's a baseline expectation that will be expected of you being on their property. So you take that how you want. If you prefer more freedom, you prefer more nicer things, amenities, you're not going to get that at a government facility. You're not going to get, splash pads, all that jazz, but for a baseline federally funded park, Army Corps of Engineers is really, really good stuff.
Yes.
So we've been to 5 different ones in this area. And so we're going to rank those from, they're all our favorites.
Least.
Yeah, least favorite to most favorite. None have been like absolutely terrible that we would never go back again. All of them have been, this is pretty great. You know, we had a great time. So yeah, we're going from our least favorite to our most favorite.
Yes.
So coming in at number 5, it's going to be Westcliff Park.
It's off of Belton Lake.
Yes, off of Belton Lake, up in the Belton area. We've been to 2 up in that area, but Westcliff in particular, again, we're rating these based on, can't really do price because they're all the same.
Right.
The cost is all the same. They all have
it's more location and kind of the sites themselves.
And the amenities and kind of you getting in the sites themselves. So what puts Belton at number 5 is probably could be pros for some people and cons for others, but for us, this kind of just...
Yeah, I think one of the least favorite things about that park was they were some pull-through sites, but it was a weird pull-through. It's not... They were adjacent to the water, you know, so the road ran this way and then you had to like kind of pull through this way to pull into the site. And they were really unlevel. They were all unlevel, not just the one that we stayed at, but they were pretty all unlevel, and they were all gravel too. There was no grass. Well, there was grass on the other side of the road, but there were no grass. It was all gravel.
So yeah, it was exactly like you're saying. And I think it's because of the nature of that. It's right on the water.
Yeah.
We put that in the pro column.
It was a pro, like, because you could literally open your door and the water was right there. The lake was right there. So that was a huge pro for that one.
But I think because it's right on the water, you've got that kind of slope, right? And so they have kind of the main road that runs along it, and all of the campsites are right off the road, and then here's the water. So the way that you kind of park, you don't have to back into sites. You kind of just, they have little pull throughs where you pull off the road. And so there's road, water. The awning and the tables, everything were great. But it's road, water, but then there was parking on the other side of the road. So you got vehicle, road, RV, water. It was really, really tight.
It was tight,
so even kind of pulling in, and then so I imagine they want you to park it, leave your RV, go park your vehicle across the road. But most people, they just went ahead and left their truck in the pull through. And so it was really, really cramped. So driving through there just to get to your spot, you're like, because it's really, really tight.
And it was a steep grade to go down too, remember? Yes. When we were driving down, it's really, really steep to get all the way down in there. So
yes,
that
and then
be a
hard, sharp turn left. And if you were too long, like we were 31, I imagine with some of these 40 foots, you know, like
might have more trouble.
It's pretty tight in there. If other people are there and there's parking, if it's fully full, you would have trouble kind of navigating through there. So that was kind of as far as the actual space, the pull through, the site.
And then they were right on top of each other too. They were very, very close to each other.
Not as close as, they were one of the smaller out of all the places we've been on these Corps of Engineer sites. It was one of the smaller ones, but it was still in comparison to like Jellystone.
Well, I know.
Dinosaur Valley.
But in reference to the core places that we've been
definitely, it was the smallest.
They were on top of each other.
So some cool things though. We'd take a walking Hilo and Apollo. They had gone through their brush and chopped down trees and did the clearing, and they had neatly cut all of the wood and kind of just stacked it. That was free use. Like you could take as much as you wanted to, and it had already been there for a while, so the outside was kind of dry. Kindling burned really, really well.
It was good.
It was very, very cool that they have that. And again, the big pro for that one is that it was right on the water. I got some really cool photos of the truck and the Galactica right in front of the water. And then there was a whole period, again, like you said, you just open the door and you got the breeze coming in from the lake.
So that was really nice. I like that.
Yeah, I imagine we went when it was pretty cold still. But if we went today, we probably wouldn't have to run the AC. Even though it's hot, like it is hot in Texas. You can see we're probably sweating a little bit. We're in Texas summer. But I think if we were there right on the water, the breeze, it would open up all the windows. It'd been really, really nice. So that's again Westcliff Park in Belton, and we've got that in at number 5. The next one is one of my personal favorites, but I think it's because the moment. right?
Yeah.
But again, when we're ranking against the other ones, size, amenities, and location, right? Let's say the Belton is a lot closer to us than this place.
Yeah.
So this one is Midway Park in Waco, and this is Army Corps of Engineers. What I absolutely loved about this one is you're driving on the highway, you do a U-turn, so you're on the expressway, you're on the U-turn, you take a right, and you're in the campsite.
Yeah.
But if you're on the highway and you look over there, you can't see the campsite.
Yeah.
And if you're in the campsite and you look towards the highway, you can't see the highway. It is like this perfect little corner in the wall.
Yeah.
And it's right on the water. What body of water is that?
I'm not sure, actually.
We'll put it right here.
Lake Waco, I guess.
In the video, Lake Waco. But it's in Midway Park in Waco. And that one was really, really cool again because it was right on the water. Not as close as Westcliff, Belton. There was a little bit more of a walk.
Yeah, you had to walk down to it.
And it was grass, but their sites were, the ones that were on the water were pretty level. And we got some stunning photos of the truck and the Galactica there.
The sun actually sets right in front of the campsite.
Yeah.
So, and on the water, because it's right on the water. So the pictures that you took were really awesome because you can watch the sunset. And a lot of people would bring their chairs too. Remember that? A lot of people from the other sites would all bring their chairs and kind of gather around that area and watch the sunset.
Now, so it's a really, really small park.
It is. I think there's only like 30 sites at that one. It's pretty small. And so the reason it kind of ranks a little bit lower is because it's a really nice park, like you said, but I would probably only want to stay in sites like 1 through 6. We stayed in site 5, which was absolutely perfect. But all the other sites were not on the water. They were in the shade, under trees and stuff like that. And most of them had a really steep grade to push your RV back into, backing into these sites. And so I would not want to stay at one of those sites. 1, because it's a steep grade back in. 2, they're not on the water. And those ones are kind of small and tight and packed in there because it is a small park. Those ones are kind of packed on top of each other.
The sites were still there were bigger than Belton.
Yes.
As small as that park was, and so few sites, it was still bigger than Westcliff.
Yes.
So that, I think, is why it's number 4. But again, I think it was the first time we took the boys. I think it was the very first time we took the boys.
We did, yeah.
And it was a perfect weekend. Their sites were, they didn't have an awning. They did not have an awning.
I think it's because some storms had just gone through and kind of messed up. Because there was some of them that did, but our site did not. But I think it's because some storms had blew over the stuff. Yeah.
So you backed into the site, though. It was typical that way. Nice, good space. Like, I viscerally remember how tight Belton was, even though it was still kind of big.
Yeah.
It was like even bigger than Belton to me.
Yeah.
Again, was right on the water, not as close, but you still got the breeze. But it was green and not gravel. And so, Midway Park in Waco. And I just love the fact that, again, it's a hole in the wall. Like it's surrounded by trees. There's green everywhere. So you got lots of shade.
You won't even really know it's there unless you're looking for it.
Yeah, unless you're looking for it. So it's very well positioned and good. But the washroom was really, really nice. I remember that in particular, that the washroom there was exceptionally nice and pretty well maintained. Not that the others have been bad, but I remember that one being pretty clean, pristine. There was a door as opposed to just like kind of an open, a lot of these government, kind of places, they don't have a door. They just kind of like it's concrete wall opening into the washrooms. That one had a door in particular that I remember. So that puts Midway Park in Waco, Texas at number 4 for us. So probably number 3 for us would be
Cedar Ridge.
Back in Belton.
Also on Belton Lake.
Yeah, that was one of the first trips. It was our second trip, I think.
I think so.
It was our second trip that we took because we still had the Silverado. Got some great photos there. And that was also right on the water. Yeah. Like it wasn't like right on the water like Belton, but easily within 20, 30 yards.
Yeah, the thing about that one's huge. There's actually 2 sections of it. There's a summer section and a winter section. And so they actually closed down the summer section during the winter. And so we went in the wintertime. And so the summer part was closed, I think. For camping. But it's on the water, but it's kind of a drop off or whatever. It's not like
exactly.
It's not like you can go up into the water and swim in it.
A
like
ridge.
Like these other ones, but it's a ridge, like a drop off.
But they do have a beach. You can walk to it.
They do. And so we had went there. I can't remember when it was. It must have been in like September or October. It was still warm enough because we did go swimming. But there's no camping on that side. You had to like drive to it.
And had a really nice rock kind of ridge that went off to the water. Kind of nice to sit there. And then they also have like the boat loading dock. So it's a nice, again, Army Corps of Engineers park. What I loved about it was the trees were massive.
Yes,
the trees were huge. Every site had kind of like a big tree because the older established park that kind of get a lot of shade. The roads were nice and wide. It wasn't tight at all. There was good space on each and every single spot. They didn't have a park. I don't remember seeing a park.
I don't remember one. No, but they did have really large group pavilions that you could rent. And I think there was like at least 2 or 3 of them that were huge, where like 100+ people could gather.
So this one, it comes in at number 3 because there really don't have any cons, nothing bad to say about it, but there was nothing exceptional about it. We started into these next couple of ones, like why these are favorite go-tos for us. So again, Cedar Ridge was also in Belton, Texas, and that's going to be number 3 of the Army Corps of Engineers parks in Central Texas for us. Okay, so now we're getting into 2 and 1. Now
the top 2.
Yes, the top 2. Like, and again, we're going from our least favorite. It's still a favorite.
It's still a favorite.
To our most favorite. So we, again, even with Westcliff Park in Belton, it was great. It's a great park. We definitely would go again. We have been to some places where we would not go again. But they weren't Army Corps of Engineers locations. So yeah, this was we're out in Granger now, and we actually disagree a little bit about which one should be number 1 and which should be number 2, because there's different things that make them both very, very special. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and put Wilson H. Fox Park in at number 2. That's in Granger, Texas.
Off of Granger Lake.
Off of Granger Lake. And Granger Dam over there, nice body of water. And this place, absolutely phenomenal. We've been there how many times now?
I've lost count.
It's one of our go-tos. It is one of our go-tos. It just has so much going on for it. The sites are enormous. They're really, really huge. Maddie likes to get on there on her scooter, and every time we go to these either Taylor Park or Wilson H, she forms a little biker gang. She just rides around, and then all of kind of kids come out on their bikes and they start riding. But the cool thing about Wilson H is that there's a park. And the park is it's central.
It's very central. So all of the sites are close proximity to the park.
Certainly. You can look out of a window in your RV, no matter where you're at, and you can see the park. That's kind of what separates this park from my number 1. But Wilson H. Fox has so much going on for it. They have the boat loading dock. They also have fishing hole.
The fishing dock.
Dock.
An actual dock where you can walk onto it, and then it has like the center part where you can put your poles on, and it has like a little walk around. And it has what is it called when it's like the part that we actually walked on to fish? The little, like, I don't even know what it's called, but it's like a little arm of land, and like rocks and stuff like that. So because there were people at the dock fishing when we went, but we could actually go on the side and do some fishing and stuff. So it has a large fishing area, basically.
Huge, but not just that's the designated fishing area. But if you want to, there's tons of like,
of course,
accessible coast that you can go and toss off. Any one of those. But so it's got the park. It's got the fishing. The fishing you can walk to the fishing.
You can.
You can walk to the fishing. You have the beach. The lake,
beach.
The swim beach at the lake. And that's cordoned off. They have these huge markers in the ground that tell you what the depth is, which is really cool. It's kind of shells and rocks.
It's rocks, which is kind of meh.
Not really sandy,
but once you walk out a little bit further, I think it's because the water's so high. We've had a lot of rain and stuff, and so you have to walk on the rocks for a little while, and then it's sand, like, and the rest of the beach. So, but again, I think that's just because we've had a lot of rain.
Either way, though, like for being right there for $20-something, it's not bad.
It is.
The water's really, really nice.
It is.
So yeah, but they do not have any hiking trails.
Not at that one.
Not at that particular one, right? And I mean, to be fair, like none of the other ones that we've mentioned so far have any hiking trails either. So if you wanted to go hiking, you would have to drive to the next park over. That to me was a con, because I would much rather be able to walk and hike and drive to go swim versus
the other way around.
Yeah, the other way around. So that's really what separates, for me, number 2 from number 1.
Yeah.
So number 1, again, and honestly, you know, if I had to choose, I wouldn't be able to choose. Really, because they're both so amazing. The sites really are so huge. This is going to be Taylor Park.
Taylor Park.
Where we're at right now.
Site number 4.
Site number 4. Yes. Right? Any other site you stay at in Taylor Park totally invalidates everything that we've said here. So I'm kidding.
No, there's some really good ones. But a lot of, I think the biggest con of Taylor Park is a lot of the sites are out in the open. There's not very many shaded ones in Taylor Park, but there are, when you get a good one, those ones are good because they're completely shaded and they're large. But they do have some smaller sites that are out in the open and not shaded. And that's really important in Texas, especially right now. It's so hot.
So there is a park. So it's kind of one of the cons of Taylor Park is that there is a park, but if you're in certain sites,
like at site number 4, we're not anywhere near the park. We'd have to drive over to it because it's pretty far, and like we won't let Maddie go over there by herself because it's pretty far. Yes,
but one little perk that separates Taylor from Wilson H was, I don't know why, but there is no gate code to get into the campsites here at Taylor Park. So we ran into the issue. We were just fortunate enough. We'd gotten there on time most of the time. So there was someone there for check-in. But this most recent time that we were coming to Taylor Park, we got behind schedule. We got here late and we came the next day because of the storm.
Right.
Instead of coming on Friday, we came on a Saturday.
Right.
And, so we're like, man, we don't have a gate code. They didn't email us a gate code and confirmation.
Yeah, I'm like looking at the email, like trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And then we were like, wait, we stayed here before.
There is no gate code.
There is no gate code. Like, so literally late check-in is not an issue because the camp host will come around and check with you the next day and give you your sticker. Yeah. So if you ever come in late, you can pull that through. That is not an option at Wilson H. Like, but we did have confirmation codes sent to us in an email.
Right. Yeah. It's in the email.
Yeah. So for whatever reason you lose your email, you may run into a couple more hiccups at Wilson H as opposed to Taylor Park. There are no gate codes. So just little things.
That could be a pro or a con for certain people.
Depends. Yeah. An emergency situation though, like not emergency, but just when one of those RV days and nothing's going the right way.
And then you lose the gate code.
Yeah, that
can really make things.
That's something I would not want to have to worry about. Yeah. But again, like we said, with Wilson H, there are no hiking trails, but you can drive to Taylor Park to hike the trails.
When we did that before.
Yeah. The cool thing about Taylor Park is
the hiking trails are right there.
It's right there.
There's multiple access to the trails too. Like this is one of them, and it's right there. But they're all over.
So that you can access the hiking trails, and we've driven to the lake every day since we've been here
to go swimming at Wilson H.
Yeah.
And the good thing is because they're owned by the same people, you don't have to pay.
That is another.
So we're staying here, and we've paid to stay at Taylor Park, but we can drive over to Wilson H and go swimming and just go right through because we already have a pass.
And vice versa, you can come over here and hike the trails with no problem. Right. But I don't know. Just personally for me, I would rather drive to go swim than have to drive to go hike. Yeah. You know, like it's just a personal thing for me. You could be totally the other way around and swap 2 for 1.
I'm the other way. I mean, Wilson H, I prefer. That would be my number 1 just because of all the pros and stuff at that one. But his favorite is Taylor Park.
The park is a really big deal. Like it is. I can see where letting Maddie be able to go out and literally just play. Like, and we can look out there and see her at any point in time.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons it's higher up on my list is the park. Yeah. Because I don't like the fact that we can't reach the park from here. Yeah. And we could have stayed at a different site, and I thought about it, but this one, the site that we're in, is just it's too perfect.
It's so nice. It keeps one side of the RV pretty shaded. Yeah. You know, and then there's other shaded spots because there's so many trees. It's just really, really great. Yeah. But again, all of them have been absolutely fantastic.
They have, all of them.
Yeah. And so we're gonna do the same thing, very similar with the Jellystone campsites that we've been to. We're planning on hitting up one in Kerrville, and kind of comparing those and kind of ranking them, which ones we think are great. I have not liked the Jellystone. I have a feeling we're gonna like the one in Kerrville as well. So it may be like
it's supposed to be bigger than the other ones that we've stayed at, and I think it has more stuff to do too. And I feel like The one we stayed at the last time down in Cannon Lake, we kind of went at a bad time. You know, like we couldn't really enjoy the amenities because it was cold.
True.
You know,
we had fun though. Still,
we did. We still had a lot of fun. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, that's again, Army Corps of Engineer campsites are absolutely phenomenal. They're relatively inexpensive.
They are.
They're very well maintained, and there's a base level kind of expectation that you can have for the quality at any of them. And again, this is a Central Texas area. Yes. And our personal ranking, we go with number 5 is
Westcliff
in Belton.
Belton Lake.
Number 4 is going to be Midway Park in Waco. Number 3 is going to be
Cedar Ridge
in Belton.
Also in Belton Lake.
Then 2 for Charlie is going to be
Taylor Park.
And number 1 for Charlie is going to be
Wilson H.
And I'm the same exact thing, except you're going to swap around those Wilson H's with the Taylor Park there in Granger. But again, anyone you go to, not going to be a bad experience. Going to be a phenomenal time.
They're all going to be nice.
And now comes that point in time of the show where we talk about some Battlestar Galactica.
Yes.
If anyone's just new to the show, we are finding a lot of kindred spirits and motivations in the people in this show. Like we're traveling across the United States while they're traveling across the galaxy. The name of the ship is the Galactica. We've named our RV after it, the Galactica. The first 2 episodes, we broke down the miniseries Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Those were the miniseries, kind of essentially the pilot of the show. Officially, though, Season 1, Episode 1 is episode titled 33. It does pick right up off where the miniseries left off. But it is a standalone episode. Okay, so this episode was written by Ronald D. Moore and it was directed by Michael Reimer. And Ronald D. Moore said he meant for it to be standalone, where if someone, how you actually watched it for the first time, if you don't see the miniseries, you can still come in and watch this first episode and be invested and know what's going on. It did have the previously on Battlestar Galactica, where it did a couple of cuts and stuff, about 40 seconds worth of clips from the miniseries. But even in comparison, just to the cameras and the lighting and the quality of the video, there's a huge difference between the miniseries and episode 33, which is season 1, episode 1. It just looks better. Because again, like I said, they aired the miniseries in 2003 on December 8th and 9th, but they didn't start working on the actual show and airing the show until the next year, 2004. So this one aired originally on October 18th, 2004, actually aired first in the UK. And then we got it a little bit later on Sci-Fi. But essentially it picks right up again, right off where the miniseries left off. You get your sense of desperation, where people in Galactica are running from the Cylons after the Cylons have destroyed humanity and all the colonies. Every 33 minutes, the Galactica and the fleet are having to jump because as soon as they jump 33 minutes later, to the second, the Cylons jump and they show up in the right place.
And that's the kind of where the season or the show actually starts. They've already jumped multiple times.
237 times.
Yes, so we did the math. That's 5 days that they've been jumping every 33 minutes.
And so you can see the people are weary. It starts off with the clock ticking. It's this sense of like urgency, but there's also the sense of weariness and dreariness. But the machines, you get the sense that it's man versus machine, and the machine doesn't get tired. The machine doesn't stop. And there's no rotation on the Galactica. There's no one taking their place to give them rest and, and R&R. But so they're having to go for 5 days straight with no sleep. It is really intense. And so then something changes though on jump 238. One of the ships gets left behind. The Olympic carrier. And so this jump, they jump when the ship's left behind. It comes around to 32 minutes and 59 seconds. And then it crosses that 33-minute threshold, and then the Cylons don't show up. And so all of a sudden you realize what's going on. Meanwhile, there's a lot of other things going on. We get to see more of Head 6 messing with Guy's Baltar and influencing him, talk to him about God and how they feel about God and different things.
She's trying to get him to believe.
To believe.
So she's dangling things in front of him, basically, to try and get him to believe in the one true God.
Yes. And it's so confusing because you still don't know what she is to him.
Yeah.
Because she's talking about things that are actually happening, but you know that she's not telling him anything that he's already not seeing and perceiving and discerning on his own, because he is a genius. He's a selfish and cowardly genius, but he's a genius. So it's hard to mix between what is Cylon Head 6 influence and what is him just his own mind figuring out, possibly manipulating himself. But that's a nice little wrinkle. But then you get to see more of the development between Starbuck and Apollo. And their kind of her clash against his authority, but her liking him maybe a little more than an ex-brother-in-law. So that's the nice little grind, sense of desperation. You get all of that same urgency and feeling that you got in the miniseries delivered to you in this episode titled 33. Every 33 minutes they're having to jump. So eventually, though, 3 hours later, on an episode titled 33, the Olympic carrier does show up.
Yes, jumps into their where they're at.
Yes. Whatever. And so then you get this other hard choice that has to be made where...
Well, so it starts off with Starbuck and Apollo going to the Olympic carrier, because it didn't jump right next to them. It's a ways away. So they're going out there, and then they're trying to communicate with the Olympic carrier, like identify yourself, what happened, how'd you get left behind, how did you get away? And at first, I think they were talking to them.
Yeah, the story that they get from the Olympic carrier makes sense. So really, there very well could have been people on there. And in fact, the episode was originally written to where the people were actually on the ship. Like when they looked through the window, there were people in there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So when it came down to that choice, it was literally, we got to choose to kill these people to save ourselves.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was really dark.
Yes.
And so they wrote it out. And they added in the little +1 bit at the end.
Okay.
Originally, that wasn't in there.
Yeah.
It was like literally, we have to choose the 300 on the Olympic carrier for
1300.
1300. You know, so it was a hard choice. But they kind of wrote that out. They watered it down some because the producers were like, no, that is, the network reps were like, that is too intense.
So when they fly by, they don't see anybody in
there. Yeah. But there's actually a little, if you look closely as a kind of a defiance, the director actually put a little bit of movement in there. So if you look really closely, you can see a little bit of movement.
You have to look really close.
Yes, but the characters in the show don't see anything. They say, I don't think anybody's in there. I can't see anybody's in there. So they changed that because otherwise it'd have been really, really heavy. Not that the show has any issues with being heavy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, the Apollo, Adama talks to Rosalind saying Cylons could have taken the ship.
Yeah.
You know, we could have been captured. They could be manipulating people. So Adama is talking with Rosalind, you know, there could be people on there. There very well could be people on there. But he's like, we have to assume. We have to assume
that it was the Cylons got a hold of the ship.
Even if there were people on there, the Cylons are now in control.
Yeah.
And this ship is a threat.
Yeah, and then they actually scanned the ship and they had nukes on the ship too.
So
they had to make that decision.
Yeah, it's like
the Olympic carrier is going directly toward the fleet.
Yeah. And so it after a while, like they made the choice easier. Again, they manipulated the episode because they didn't want it just to be like hard, like we got to choose these 1300. Yeah. And then
well, something that we didn't mention yet either is Rosalind actually has a whiteboard and she wrote the number of people that's left. So the human population, I think it was like 50,000 and some change. And so taking away 1,300 people, it shows her sitting there with a number in the background. So the fact that they have to take this ship, or they have to...
well, it was lost.
Yes, well,
it was lost. When it did make the jump, originally, they thought it was gone forever. And so she felt the weight of that loss of 1,300 people.
Yes.
And so she changed the number there.
Yes, she did.
And then it jumps in. And then this whole situation arises. And so, again, the show is kind of just randomly, like they stop talking and they start doing kind of a kamikaze run into the fleet. Yeah. They're not talking anymore.
Yeah.
And so then
they're trying to radio them.
Yeah.
They're not responding.
The context of the show changes. Like you could tell they really watered it down as opposed to literally
killing people.
Yeah. Killing people. Like eventually they make it obvious that something is wrong and they have to do something about this ship. Yes. They unmuddy the waters, the ethical waters that wasn't originally there when they first wrote the episode. Yes. So, but still, Adama gives the order. They decide this is a threat. We cannot risk it. Even if there are people on there, we can't risk it.
Yeah.
And so he orders Apollo to shoot down the ship. And Starbug, being her normal rebellious self, tries to convince him not to do it.
Yeah.
But
she does. She follows orders.
Yeah.
But she does not want to. She's like, Apollo, you can't be serious. We can't do this.
And so they shoot down the Olympica carrier. Apollo's actually one who, in his Viper, pulls the trigger, essentially. He'll carry that weight on through the rest of the season.
Yes, he will.
But yeah, so they destroy the Olympic carrier, but the Cylons do show up, and then they jump again, though, right? So they destroy the Olympic carrier, Cylons show up, because you find out they were tracking the Olympic carrier. There was something about the fuel in the Olympic carrier that was giving off a specific reading that made this, a radiation signal that made the Cylons able to track it. So that was the way they were able to follow them every 33 minutes. So once the Olympic carrier is gone, they jump away. Things start to settle again. They're actually away from the Cylons.
Yeah, so they do a countdown as soon as they jump, and they wait the 33 minutes, and then they wait longer. Like they keep going 34, 35, 36, 37 minutes. And the Cylons don't follow them. And
so to kind of wrap up the show, and again, to make it not as dark, right? That 50,000 number dropped by 1,300.
Yeah.
And so that's heavy. Whoa, like our numbers are going down. But at the very end, Billy tells President Rosin there's a change to the number. And she's like, how many did we lose? He's like, well, no, actually, you can add one. Baby was born on the rising star. So they added +1. There's a whole deal where she changes the number and adds one at the end. So there's hope. Like, kind of makes the show a little bit more hopeful, not so dark. But again, that's not how it was originally designed. The show was extremely powerful. Even again, if that's the first thing that you see getting into Battlestar Galactica, it gives you everything that you need. You get to see Hilo surviving on Caprica. You get to see kind of the two Sharons and who the one with the Galactic versus the one on Caprica. Kind of breaks it out of the space opera, separates it from Star Trek, and all. It kind of makes it a little bit more gritty. So it's an awesome show. Even if you don't see the miniseries, you get all of that in the first episode. The episode won the Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. It was up for a lot of awards. Very, very powerful. It was considered one of the most intense moments in television back in 2000. It was ranked number 10 by the New York Times, I want to say, because it's a really, really heavy episode. It starts off really, really serious. That's what they thought of it. Personally, I love it. It's just really, really great. But again, I'm biased. I have no real criticisms of the show. Again, my one criticism, there was Boomer Sharon, Grace Park, I believe her name is the actress. She's not tired. We know she's not tired because she's a Cylon. They don't know why she's tired. So her and Chief have an exchange in one of the Raptors. He's talking to her and she's like, I'm fine, okay. But Grace Park, whenever she kind of gets upset, her angry acting always comes off over the top to me. Maybe it's just something that she does organically. That's probably one of my criticisms, is just kind of her acting in kind of those angry moments. And then when she's like, not Boomer, but Sharon on Caprica with Hilo, she's like, come on, soldier, get up. Like, she just doesn't do a really stern, angry, yell that's very, very passionate. That kind of just takes me out of it whenever she does that. That'd be my only criticism of the episode. Otherwise, I love the pacing. I love the story. I love the grittiness. What about you?
Same. I really like the episode, again, because it was the actually first one I watched. I didn't watch the miniseries the first time that we watched it. So it was really intense, and it really got me into the show. Because like he said, it is a really emotional, intense show, or starting episode. So it really got me invested. And the first time that I watched it, I loved it, and I fell in love with the show. And then we continued to watch it. So that's really it. I don't really have any criticism other than the Sharon thing too, because I really don't like her character that much, because I don't. Yeah, she's not very intense.
She isn't.
She's a good actress though when it comes to other things, but those really intense moments when you need to be really into it and really emotional, she's not that great.
She does more subtle.
She does
emotion,
yes, and she's really, really good at that.
Kind of the outbursts though, the kind of really intense, over the top moments. I think she loses it. But again, it's. Small thing. That's like me.
Really
I'm trying to find a criticism because I don't want to seem like a homer. I absolutely love the show. But yeah, if that's the first.
I mean, they did really well for a very the first episode.
Yes.
Or I mean, it was I keep saying first episode because it was the first episode for me, but I know that it wasn't. But it's episode 1, so yeah.
So yeah, that's, episode 1, season 1, titled 33 of Battlestar Galactica. So hopefully you enjoyed the review of that particular episode. Again, we don't put a spoil warning on these, just to know that when we say now is the time that we talk about Battlestar Galactica, pretty much every episode we're going to be following along. Yeah. So hopefully you're not waiting every 2 weeks to watch a new episode.
Hopefully.
But for whatever reason, if you don't want the show spoiled for you, just go ahead and leave the podcast at that point of the show and then come back and listen to what we think about it after you've watched it. Yeah. So again, we're going to keep up with these. Again, we are trying to condense them and make the breakdowns not as in-depth, but still kind of trying to give our opinions and some basic general information, maybe some insider stuff that you don't have the time or no interest to go and research about the show, kind of give you some extra stuff. Yeah. We have finally got our first reaction video done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We're going back to, again, because we can't do a podcast episode on every single trip that we've done. But we can go back and make that content fun and engaging for us to do, and hopefully you enjoyed it as well. So we did react to our first trip was to Jellystone. So if you haven't seen that yet, please go check it out and let us know what you think. Please, we love interactions. Again, we know that it takes a little bit to have to log into YouTube and comment on the videos, but we really, really appreciate the feedback. We're sharing this because we love it, right? We're sharing our knowledge. Please share your knowledge with us.
Yes,
either if it's through Instagram or if it's through YouTube in the comments. Please share what you think about our experiences, what maybe you learned that is different from ours. If you disagree, we are more than happy to hear that as well.
Definitely.
Any feedback is definitely welcome. So thank you so much for listening and joining along with us today. Hopefully you enjoyed something.
Hopefully.
And we'll see you down the road.
See you down the road.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our video channel and podcast. We have absolutely loved building connections with the RV community and anyone else interested in this lifestyle.
So if you'd like to connect with us, please follow us on Instagram and YouTube at So Say We Travel, or visit us at SoSayWeTravel.com.
See you down the road.